I make thousands of dollars with Make.com, and in this video I'm going to cover 3 main modules that I use in Make.com that allow me to build complex flows for my clients, and I'm actually going to show you examples of real flows that I've built for actual real clients, and hopefully you'll learn how to use these modules in real life to also build flows for your clients. So let's go ahead and get started. The first concept that I want to cover is 2 data types that are commonly used in Make.com and generally in programming languages. The first thing is, let me just run this module which creates 3 different bundles, and this is the first data type that I'm going to talk about. Bundles are very common in Make.com. Like, you'll often see them when, let's say, you retrieve data from Google Sheets or Airtable or ClickUp or any other CRM. You'll often see a bunch of bundles of data, basically what a bundle is, it's a collection of data which contains, usually a key and a value. Like in this case, a key is an ID, the value is 2. The key is name, the value is Emily, and experience as well. The key is the experience, and 3 is the value. Bundles, as you see, are independent of each other. They're not stored like together. They're just like 3, random independent collections. And what's interesting about bundles, this module uses one operation. As you see here, it says one. This is one operation. If you use another module after that, let's say we want to set a variable. Let me just call it test, and let's put the ID from this module. If I click OK and I click run once, what's going to happen here is this module is going to run only once. This module is going to run 3 times because this JSON module created 3 different bundles. And this is why it created 3 different operations in the second module. And if you just click on it, you'll see that each operation used a different ID. It used basically the next bundle's ID. There's a different data structure used on Make.com, and it is a very common data structure in programming languages, and it's called an array. And I'm using an array aggregator to, create an array. What it's doing is basically it takes many bundles, let's say in our case it's 3 bundles, and concatenates them together into one array. So I'm using this array aggregator module. I'm setting the source module as the JSON parse JSON module, and then I'm just selecting the fields that I want to aggregate. In my case, let's say I don't care about the ID, I only care about name and experience. I'm concatenating or aggregating them together, and if I run this flow, it's going to use only one operation, and the output of this operation will be an array. As you see here, we only used 1 bundle, not 3. And if you see, it says array length is 3 because we aggregated 3 bundles into one array. And so this is going to look something like this. What an array is, it's also a collection of data, but in this case, it's just putting everything into one place. Basically, all of these items are now they're still independent of each other, but they're stored together, and you can index different elements of an array. You can get the first element of the array, the second element of the array, the third, etc. And you can play around with these indices to get different types and different results of data. So which you cannot do with bundles. You cannot say, I want to take the second bundle. You cannot take the third bundle because they're not stored in any way, shape, or form, right? But with an array, you can do that. I'm going to cover the use cases of arrays a little later. I just want to cover the basics of these basic modules. So this is the first kind of main part, which is an array. Very simple module. You just use the source. It creates different bundles. If you want to put another module in between an array aggregator and this JSON module, you would still use parse JSON because it creates different bundles. If you set it to set variable, it will basically run multiple times. It's gonna run 3 times because it creates an array per operation here. What you want to do instead is you want to select the source module that creates multiple bundles. That's kind of the initial source module. Now we're going to cover the next module, which is an iterator. What it is basically it's complete opposite of an array aggregator. So array aggregator, what it does, it takes bundles and it creates an array. Iterator would, on the other hand, takes an array and creates bundles. It basically multiplies the array into multiple bundles. So let me create an array using this parse.json module. As you see, this is how I create an array, and it creates this type of structure. As you see, I just created an array with links, google.com, youtube.com, and x.com. This is using only one module. It's only one array. But what if you wanted to, let's say, scrape each website, right, given this link? Let's say you want to scrape Google, you want to scrape YouTube, you want to scrape x.com. Well, if you just put like an HTTP module here, right, and you make a request to this website, it's not going to work. What it's going to do, let me just pretend that I scraped a website. Let me say, let me just put this array here. If I run this module, it's going to work only once, and the output of this scraping result will be it's going to put the whole array here as a comma separated items. As you see, google.com, comma, youtube.com, comma, x.com. You don't want that. You want to get each individual item and then use that individual item to make, let's say, a post request in our case, or just make a request to this website to retrieve data. What you want to do is use an iterator and iterate over this created array. And then what you will put later is your, let's say, scraping module in our case, and we're going to say scraped data from value. And it will make more sense if I run this. The array iterator will also use one operation, but if you look at the output of this operation, it will create these bundles. So it came from one bundle and it created 3 bundles. Plus it attached some other data like bundle order position and total number of bundles, which is, I'm not going to cover them right now, but these are very important details and values. At the next module, the module after the iterator created 3 operations because iterator created 3 bundles. So each operation used the value from kind of each new item from the array. So scrape data from Google, scrape data from YouTube, scrape data from x.com, right? So it basically took the array, it created 3 different bundles and went over these each individual bundle. Now you want to be very careful with iterators because, as you see, each following module after the iterator will use as many operations as there are bundles created from the iterator. In our case, it's only 3 and there's only one module here, so it's not a big deal. But what if, let's say, you want to then send a Slack notification to somebody, right? And then you would like to, I don't know, update something on Airtable, or you would like to update something on Google Sheets. And let's say you didn't have 3 websites, you had 100 websites. Well, the problem here will be that each module after the iterator will use 100 operations. And you can imagine how detrimental or how expensive it can be if you have, let's say, 10 modules after the iterator, and each module uses 100 operations. Well, it's going to cost you too many operations if you run it often, which is something you don't want to do. Maybe you want to do it, but you have to take into account the cost. So this is one part, right? Aggregators create an array from bundles, iterators create bundles from an array. And again, I'm going to cover the specifics and the use cases a bit later, but the last module that I use probably most of the time in terms of these 3 is my most common module, which is a text aggregator. And a similarity between an array aggregator and a text aggregator is that they take multiple bundles and create only one bundle as the output. And this is also very important, which I'm going to cover a bit later, but this is a concept that you want to take into account, that you can take multiple bundles and create a structure of them and create only one bundle as the output. So what a text aggregator does is, let's say I have the same type of output. I have 3 bundles, each containing an ID, a name, and experience. So again, ID, name, experience, and the same for the 3rd bundle. But now I want to create like a text format containing the name of the person and their experience, right? And then for the purposes of this part, I'm just gonna remove this. If we run this, it's gonna use only 2 operations, so one here and one here as well. So if you look at the output of this module, first of all, it's messy, and I'm gonna cover why. So name John experience 7, name Emily experience 3, name Brian experience 1. So we combined all bundles from this module into one bundle containing just text output, right? But what you want to do here is you want to separate each bundle in a way. And what you want to click on Show Advanced Settings, use row separator, and just in my case, I'm going to put new row here. And what it's going to do is separate each row or each module by a new row. And if I run this once, what will happen is it's going to separate them by new lines. So name John experience 7, new line, name Emily experience 3, new line, name Brian experience 1, and there is no line after that. So very, very common module. You can create pretty much any data structure using this module. Very common. And let's get into the use cases right away. So the first flow that I want to show you is this fine-tuning, ChatGPT fine-tuning automation. What it does is basically it creates, it takes some data from Airtable, it creates a specific structure called JSON-L. It's different from JSON, similar to it, but different. And then creates a fine-tuning job on OpenAI. So what I'm doing here is I'm searching for rows on Airtable, and as you see, it outputs 63 bundles. Well, what I'm doing then is I'm creating prompts for ChatGPT. So I'm using a system prompt, a user prompt, and an assistant prompt. And what I'm doing later is I'm creating this JSON-L structure. So I'm creating this messages array, which contains a system prompt, a user prompt, and a role prompt, right? And then what I'm doing later is I'm using this text aggregator to combine all of these JSON-L structures for each kind of bundle. And I'm creating basically 63 operations, or not 63 operations, but 63 JSON-L items. And this is how I'm doing it. So I'm putting this JSON-L output here, and I'm concatenating it, and I'm combining it using a new line. A better way of doing it would be actually to use a new line, a new row separator, but I chose to do it this way, and not gonna fix what's not broken. So this is an example of an output. Again, I have 63 bundles, and then I am creating 63 different. I'm using 63 operations to create 63 different outputs for system prompt, user prompt, and assistant prompt as well. I'm using another module to create a JSON-L structure using this way, right? And then I'm using this text aggregator to only create one bundle from all of these 63 bundles and concatenate everything here. So it's a huge chunk of text. And then what I'm doing later is just uploading this data to Dropbox. It creates a JSON-L file. I upload it to OpenAI as a file, and then I create a fine-tuning job on OpenAI. So, but the main part is that from 63 operations, I condensed it to one operation, and I combined it all into structure that I want, that I need for OpenAI. The next use case that I want to cover is just probably the simplest use case you're gonna see. This is just an iterator. You probably only use it for just literally iterating through data. In my case, I'm using ChatGPT to create an array of data, and this is probably more unique. Instead of just iterating over an array that you got from, let's say, scraping data from the internet, or maybe array of attachments from Airtable, something along those lines, I use ChatGPT to create a list of categories, and basically I'm not going to explain it in detail, but I'm just creating an array here. So this is an example of an array. And then what I'm doing is just I'm iterating through this array and create different outputs. Based on that, I think I schedule post to social media on Airtable using this flow. So I'm literally just iterating through data. I am going through this array and using each new item at a time. And then the next module that I'm going to cover is an array aggregator. And then for the array aggregator, well, there are more use cases, and the first one is probably the simplest, is when you actually want to use an array as a structure and pass it to another module. So for example, this flow that schedules content to social media platforms, there is a module that is called metrical, and it actually posts content and schedules content to social media platforms, and it accepts media array as the array of like content items, maybe images, videos, and things like that. And here you would actually put an array of data, right? It's not one item, it's just a structure of multiple items. So that's kind of the first way of putting it, the first way of using it, the most common one, just literally using an array. The next more common way of using it, probably how I use array aggregators most of the time, is to create a structure of data or to find something. Well, what I'm doing here is, let's say I have system prompts on Airtable, basically prompts that my client can change for different ChatGPT modules. So I'm searching for them. I'm getting these prompts here. I have 3 bundles, right? Each containing a different prompt. And like, let's say there's a prompt for like creating captions. There is a prompt for creating descriptions and that sort of stuff. And then I'm using an array aggregator to combine this all information, create an array. And then what I can do later is search for information from the array. In my case, just using a to-collection method. In my case, I'm not looking for data. Often I also use it to, map data and just search for some key from the map function from the array, which is also common, but it's more complex. I'm not going to cover it in this video. If you want me to cover map functions, which are very, very useful, let me know in the comments down below. So in my case, I'm just creating a collection containing a prompt ID and the prompt itself. So I'm basically recreating the data structure here in a different way that will be easier to use later. So I'm creating one bundle with system prompts. So there's a Gemini prompt, caption prompt, and image description prompt. And then when I use it, it's easier for me to handle and manage because I see the actual key and I know what prompt is what. So I know this is a Gemini description, image description, main caption. So that's another way of using it, basically creating some kind of a data structure from the array. So you have multiple bundles, you would like to transform it, maybe find something, and that's how you would use it. And then the last way of using array aggregators has pretty much nothing to do with arrays. It's mostly about stopping iterations. So what I mean by that is I have this huge flow, right? And if you see here, there is an iterator, and then there is another iterator, and then there is, I guess that's it. I have only 2 iterators, but it goes from this flow up to this flow. So basically, each module between this array aggregator and this iterator is run multiple times due to the nature of iterators and as I've explained them before. The rest of the flow, I don't want to run multiple times. I only want to send one email. I want to only create one row. I want to create only, one spreadsheet from a template. I don't want to use the nature of iterators to run each of these modules multiple times. As I've explained before, each module after the iterator will run as many times, it will use as many operations as there are bundles created from this iterator. So I don't want it to run multiple times, right? So what I'm using is just an array aggregator. What I'm doing is just I'm using the first initial iterator as the source module, which creates these initial bundles. And then I'm combining it all into an array. And I don't care about this array. I don't care what it includes. I just want to stop the iteration. That's how you do it. You get all these iterators, you aggregate them into kind of one array, you stop it, and then all modules after this array aggregator are going to run only once. So this is a very common way of using array aggregators. Sometimes you don't want to run some modules multiple times. You just want to get some data from iterators, and you want to send only one, you want to use only one module. Another way of using it, let's go back to the initial explanation here. Here we used an array, we iterated through the array, and we scraped contents from each website here, as you remember. But then what if you want to send a Slack notification saying, hey, we've scraped all of the contents from all of these websites? Well, if you put just a Slack message here, it's going to send 3 notifications. Maybe you just want to send 1 notification, right? What you would use, you would use an array aggregator, and you would use the iterator as the source module. You would use the scraping result here, and then let's say set variable. Let's pretend that I'm sending a Slack message. Then I'm just, creating a Slack message that says scrape data. And what it's gonna do now is it's not gonna use 3 operations here. It's not gonna send 3 messages. Instead, it's gonna use the array aggregator to stop the iteration from this module and just send 1 message after that. And each consequent module after the array aggregator will run only once. So again, very, very common way of using it. And you will encounter it many times if you build complex flows. So I hope you learned something. I hope you found it helpful, and now you can leverage these tools and leverage these modules and concepts in your flows as well to create more intelligent automations using these arrays and bundles. If you have any questions regarding these concepts, leave them in the comments down below. I'll do my best to respond to every single question. Thanks and take care.